In this video we're going to discuss genetics, particularly gene dominance and monohybrid crosses. Now, I've deliberately used big words there because a lot of the words in this video will be relating to genetics and might be new words, so we might need to practice them to get used to them. So we start with remembering what a gene is. That's a part of DNA that encodes for a characteristic, a trait. By making proteins, those proteins build up, and DNA contains the blueprint of how to make an organism. We're going to be looking at an example here between mice. So we've already looked at the differences between sexual reproduction and asexual reproduction. Mice, like all mammals, sexually reproduce, so they have two copies of every gene in their body. So there's two chromosomes here. The individual genes might be the same and they might be different. So a gene, we'll take a theoretical gene that encodes for the colour of fur here. Those two copies are described by this word alleles. Now they might have different alleles or they might be the same. So we're looking at the white mouse and the brown mouse. So in genetics, when we're working with inheritance and probability of inheritance, we'll take a trait and give it a code. So in this case, we'll take B for brown fur, but then the opposing trait, which is the white fur, we're going to give a lowercase b. So a capital B for brown fur, lowercase b for white fur. So that's describing the alleles. So the alleles might be the same, they might be different. So we might have two capital B's for brown fur, we might have one gene for brown fur and one gene for white fur, or there might be two white fur genes. Now why have I used a capital B and a lowercase b, uppercase and lowercase b? This is the idea of gene dominance. The dominant gene is the one that will be expressed if it is present. So the dominant gene is given the capital letter. So dominant gene, which is expressed if present. Again, a lot of jargon here, particular language to genetics. There goes the handle of the lightsaber pen. So the dominant gene is expressed if present. The lowercase b, I'm going to turn the recessive gene, the recessive allele. So allele being two copies of the same gene, they could be the same allele, maybe they could be different alleles, b, small b. The recessive is only expressed if the dominant isn't present. So if we have the two capital B's, that's two copies of the brown fur gene, it's going to be brown. If we have two lowercase b's, that's two copies of the white fur, that's going to be white. However, if we have a mix, if one allele is the dominant gene, the capital B for brown fur, one allele is the recessive gene, the lowercase b for the white fur, then that will be, that will be brown. As long as the dominant gene is present, it will be expressed. There are other examples of covariance which we won't go into in any detail today. So to work with probabilities to determine the likelihood of the mouse having brown or white fur, geneticists can use a technique called a monohybrid cross. So mono meaning one, and hybrid meaning it's to do with one trait, in this case the colour of the fur, the brown or the white fur, and cross because we are crossing over the breeding. So geneticists will use this tool which is called a Punnett square. which is quite a simple way of mapping out the likelihoods. So in this example, we're going to have a set of parents, so our parent mice, so arbitrarily have that one be the male and that one be the female, who are both, get rid of that post-it, who are both brown. Now remember, brown is the capital B, which is dominant, and white we were coding with the lowercase b, so it's still the same trait that you're looking at there. You're still keeping the B rather than a W to show that it's linked, that it's still the same hair colour trait, or fur colour, however you want to describe it on a mouse. So capital B for brown is the dominant gene. Lowercase b for white is the recessive gene. If the B for brown, the capital B, is present, brown will be expressed. So we could have these two parents where their fur genes, they could each have a copy of each allele. So the allele for brown and the allele for white is present. Brown is dominant, so brown is expressed. And that's true in the mother as well. So cross them to find out the likelihood, the probability that their offspring have brown hair, the probability that they have white. So the genes are going to get mixed up. In sexual reproduction, the father will give one copy of the gene to the offspring, the mother will give one copy of the gene to the offspring, so each offspring ends up with two copies. So father passing on B for brown, father passing on lowercase b for white, and we'll put the mother in this column. Okay, so what we're looking at here is, let's say there's 4 offspring. And we're just looking at statistical probability here. So there could be 4 offspring, there could be 16 offspring, there could be 128 offspring. Mice do reproduce quite quickly. So what's going to happen is, statistically, half of those offspring will inherit the B from the father, the capital B. And half of them will inherit the lowercase b, the white fur gene. And from the mother, half will inherit the capital B for the brown, half will inherit the lowercase b for the white fur. So in our 4 offspring, again, just taking it as a statistical possibility, we will have this mixture of genes. You might see capital B, capital B. Now I've written it here as this lowercase b first, but typically when you're writing what's called a genotype, the genes that are present, the copies of allele, if there's a dominant one, you'd put that first. So I'm going to do that here. We have, so let me just tick that off actually. We've got our 2 capital B's. We've got a capital and a lowercase. We've got another capital and a lowercase. And we've got 2 lowercase. So what are you seeing here? If there's a capital B present, it's going to be brown. There's 2 capital B's, that's going to be brown. There's a capital B, it's going to be brown. There's a capital B, it's going to be brown. There's no capital B, that mouse is going to be white. So although you have 2 brown parents, they're passing on the white gene that's recessive. 3 of their offspring will have that gene, only 1 of them will appear white because it'll have 2 copies. So the probability that the child of these 2 mice will be brown is 3 out of 4. the probability it will be white is 1 out of 4. So that's how we would use a Punnett square to carry out a monohybrid cross to determine the probability of the expression of a gene of the offspring. Now again, there's a lot of jargon words there. In the comments of this video and the description of this video, I will include a list of those words just to make sure that we can practice them and get used to using those words in the biological context.